Hey there, I'm Gary. Welcome to my video thing. Today I would like to continue my series where I try to give you sort of a behind the scenes look at my creative process by showing you how I'm working through this new story idea of a pickup basketball game. And I'm taking this jungle of an idea and I'm trying to turn it into something that is simple and engaging and meaningful. Last time I talked about the jungle of an idea, and this time I want to talk about life and how life and seeing and tasting and touching and smelling and experiencing life as fully as possible is such an important part of your creative process. And it's like that pickup basketball game that I saw when I'm just driving down the road and I see on the playground a pickup basketball game with 10 or 12 teenagers that's happening during this quarantine. That that it just kind of was a moment where, like a sunset, where that horizon line between life and art just shone brightly. It wasn't just stuff that was filling up my life. It wasn't just something to look at. It was a piece of art right there on the playground. This is the part of the process where you can bring yourself into the project. You can bring yourself into the art, and it's an incredibly important step, because the more of yourself that you can bring, the more of your passions, the more of your strengths and weaknesses, the more of your flaws that you can bring into story, the more of the things that you're passionate about that you can bring into a story, the more that it's going to resonate with your audience, the more that they are going to connect with it and engage, um, because they can see a little glimpse of you, and that little glimpse of you gives them a little glimpse inside of themselves. In my opinion, the best part of yourself that you can bring into a work of art is your desire, your willingness to grow and learn and to become a better person, to learn new things, to open yourself up to a bigger and stranger world. That the world as you see it right now is is not the fullness of life. The world as you see it right now is only a glimpse, and every day you can uncover and discover more about the world, that you can see for yourself that the world is bigger and stranger than you ever imagined, and that every day you have the opportunity to make the world a little bit bigger and stranger for yourself. So you want to expand your life and open up your mind and grow and learn as much as possible. Because if you want to be able to make art that is going to create change, if you're writing a story and you want to create a protagonist that is really going to change and learn and grow and develop and become a better person throughout the course of your story, then you have to be willing to learn and grow and change yourself. So the best part of yourself that you can bring into this story is to be able to learn and grow and change. And so that needs to be a part of your everyday life, is just a willingness to see a bigger and stranger world. One thing that has been really important for me, as I go through this journey of life and trying to see a bigger and stranger world, and I've talked about this before, is trying to hold opposites in my mind, trying to see the truth of two conflicting or even contradictory things, to look at them as both true, that there is truth in both of those things. So your way of seeing the world today It's true. As long as you are being honest with yourself, your way of seeing the world has truth, but it's not the whole truth. The world is bigger and stranger than you think it is right now. There is always a next level. I think this is a good time to show you my notebook, my handy dandy notebook. My son's into Blue's Clues, by the way. Whenever I'm working on a creative project, let's say, for example, a story, it's not really a story until it has its own notebook. And I wanted to show you that because there is something that I wanted to show you in my notebook. So something that I'll do, the reason that I have a notebook and not just like a Word document is because I like to make my notes as visual as possible. So I like to draw little pictures. So I've got this basketball court here to go along with my story of the basketball game. And what I did was, on this side of the court, I've got this team over here. Now this team, I wrote down 5 words that describe my story idea, this jungle of an idea that I created about the pickup basketball game and the dizziness of freedom and the mimetic theory that I've talked about before. So I just wrote down 5 words to create this team over here. And the 5 words that I chose are abstract, detached, complicated, boring, rational. So those are the 5 words that I've got right now. For good or bad, this is how I would describe my story idea. On the other side of the court, I created this other team, this opposing team. These ideas that are opposite of my 5 descriptors. So concrete, intimate, simple, exciting, emotional. So I've got these opposites. What I want to do is, this is my story as it stands now. I want to inject some of this. I want to find a way to make this story to be both rational and emotional at the same time, both complicated and simple at the same time, both abstract and concrete. I want to be able to inject these things into this story. Something that I think is interesting about basketball, you've got 10 players on a basketball court, right? And they're opposites. They are opponents. They are on opposing sides of something. But what if you took out the idea of winning and losing? What if you were watching a basketball game and you were some sort of alien who came from a planet that didn't have any concept of winning and losing? A basketball game then is just some sort of beautiful dance between these 10 players. And they're creating something that is pretty amazing together. And that's what I want to do here with this story. I want to take these 5 players and these 5 players and their opponents, but I want to bring them together to create something amazing. The next thing that I do that kind of helps me to see a bigger and stranger world and to open up my mind, and it's something that's fairly new for me in my process, but I'm pretty excited about it, and I call it imagination. So that's my word. You can't steal it. It's basically what it is. It's a kind of meditation, I guess, but what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to imagine these characters and the world that they inhabit. And so what I'll do is I'll set some parameters. So I know that I've got this protagonist and I've got this antagonist. And I'm setting some basic guidelines for these 2 characters and the world that they live in. So I'm just saying that they're both seniors in high school, and they know each other. They both live in the same town, and they're both being raised by single moms and their only children. And that's the basic parameters. So then I started with the protagonist, and I just kind of like walked through his day. So I just kind of started off by saying, what happens when he wakes up? And I just imagine his world. What happens when he wakes up? What's the first thing he hears? What's the first thing he sees? The first thing he hears is his alarm clock going off. Okay? He reaches over to turn off his alarm clock. It's his phone, right? He's got an iPhone. He's got the newest, most expensive iPhone. This kid, our protagonist, comes from a wealthy family. His dad makes a lot of money. He's got the newest iPhone. The next thing, what happens next? He reaches for his glasses. He's got designer glasses. His mom bought him the most expensive frames that she could find because she's worried about him. She wants him to be happy. She wants him to fit in. She thinks having nice clothes, having nice things is going to help him fit in. And he lives in this rural town, and she's a little bit out of touch with this rural town because she spends her time and her energies going off to the suburbs and to the city, and she's a very social person, and she's kind of a little bit out of touch with her son and his reality and his world. So then what's the next thing that he does? He goes and he brushes his teeth. He goes into the bathroom. And what I try to do is I try to bring out details. So he goes in to brush his teeth. I zoom in. What does his toothbrush look like? For some reason, it's a Spider-Man toothbrush. But there's a cup, a plastic cup that's got two toothbrushes in it. His mom's toothbrush and his toothbrush. And the one that he reaches for is a Spider-Man toothbrush. So that's an example of something I'll do. Then I'll focus on the protagonist for 30 seconds a minute. Then I'll switch over to the antagonist. The antagonist comes from a working class family. For some reason, I started with him at the window. He wakes up and he goes to the window. Their life is more outside than it is inside. He wants to know what life is like outside. That's the first thing that he does. He goes to the window. He looks outside. His mom is already awake. She's out there. She's a welder. That's what she does for a living. She works at the manufacturing company down the street. And she's welding something outside. The next thing that he's got to do, he's got chores, he's got responsibilities for making their life work. And he goes to feed the chickens. He's going to check the chickens. They've got a chicken coop out in their backyard. Like none of these things may necessarily end up in the story. A lot of these things are maybe perhaps bad ideas, but I'm just trying to immerse myself in their world as much as possible. Like, for example, our protagonist, what does his bedroom look like? That's something that I should know if I'm going to write a story about this kid. And in this process, this imagination process, I know that he's got blank, bare walls. He's got a corner desk. He's got a gaming chair. He's got a desktop computer that is made for gaming. He's a video gamer. And this process, this just immersion into their world, opens up all these details. Try to get as detailed as possible. What color are things? What do things taste like, smell like, look like? As many details as you can, and then write them down. Write them down in your notebook. There's the Spider-Man toothbrush. It's blue and red. Also, this is for the protagonist. He's got a large workout room with very expensive equipment and a large window that overlooks the park and the town. And our protagonist doesn't spend any time in there, but his mom is in there all the time, especially during the quarantine. In the driveway, they've got two Mazda Miatas, but Zeke, that's our protagonist, he hates to drive. We've got a large red cereal bowl. So basically, here's his comfortable gaming chair, his blank bare walls. And then down here, this is our antagonist. They've got a metal shed in their backyard under a maple tree, and that's where his mom welded it together. We've got an old Camaro that's up on blocks with grass growing through the engine block. I said here maybe it was left behind by his dad, but I'm thinking maybe it's his mom's brother. We've got a rusted out basketball hoop in their driveway. These are the details that I got from that little imagination exercise. And some of them are good, some of them are crappy. Some of them will make it into the story, some of them won't. No judgment, just imagine and record.